Hello Hornets, and welcome to Gen Y. Why Gen Y? Because we're the inquisitive generation, always seeking inspiration and following our dreams. I'm Mackey, your host, and I'm here with a very special guest, Mark Amorossi. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Mark is a student here at Fullerton College, and we're going to talk to you just a little bit about your educational path and sort of what you're doing here at Fullerton College, okay?
Sounds good.
Awesome. So first question is, what is your educational path? What are you studying, and what does that mean to you?
At the moment, I'm studying any and all things that have to do with entertainment arts, and that's essentially, movies, video games, television, pretty much all that stuff. And I'm specifically in the 3D field. I'm a 3D generalist, so I do modeling, texturing, rigging, all that stuff, and that's where I'm going with it.
So, okay, you say you're a 3D generalist. What are the specific elements that you would be working on? And just so everyone understands, we're talking about 3D design and for video games and movies and things like that, right?
Correct.
Okay, so what would a generalist do, say, on any given day at the office?
Well, the generalist is kind of the guy that knows pretty much everything about the production pipeline, for me, especially when it comes to 3D. So most of the time you're going to have, it's going to be split up with your modelers, you're going to have your texturers, you're going to have your riggers, your animators, and they're all going to be in their own field. I would be the guy that's kind of doing it all, knows a little bit of every field, so I can kind of go around and either do my own thing or help everybody else with theirs.
Sort of a jack of all trades.
Sort of, yeah, like a Renaissance man.
I'm
trying to get there.
Better way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at what point in your life, I guess, when did you realize that this was something that you were interested in and wanted to pursue?
Well, I've always been drawing since I was a little kid, so I've always been into art, but it was mostly a traditional background. I kind of discovered the digital side of it by accident in high school. Just kind of surfing the web and just found some programs that I could, just free programs I could try out. And from there it kind of just exploded. It was just like this thing that was just captured my interest like no other.
Right on. And so when it comes to 3D modeling and rigging and all that, since you can choose to kind of follow the video game path or the filmmaking path, do you have a preference? Do you like one over the other?
For me, probably it would be the video game industry, just because it's it's a lot more fast-paced. It's in and out. It's a quick turnaround. You always have specific projects that you need to complete, and you need to do them fast. So there's a lot of work that you have to do. So it's more practice, more mileage. It's all about mileage for me.
Okay.
Get as good as your craft as you can.
Very good. So really refining the tools that are in front of you and knowing the technical side, but also the creative side, right?
Definitely the creative side.
So you're not just sitting there doing ones and zeros. You're creating something.
Correct.
Okay.
It's more of an art than a technical thing.
Well, we want to talk more about that as soon as we come back. We're going to take a quick break. I'm Mackey with Mark Amorossi on Gen Y. Welcome back, Hornets. I'm Mackey, and I'm speaking today on Gen Y with Mark Amorossi. And before we went to break, we were talking a little bit about how in your field you do have to be very technically minded, but also when you're designing, you have to be creative as well. Do you feel like you have more of a strength in one area over the other, or do you have a preference?
I definitely have more of a strength in the technical side of it, figuring out what works as far as in 3D you work with polygons, so polygon counts, things like that. Preference-wise, I would love to get more into the design side of it, the creative side of it, with the concepts and fleshing things out in 2D before you move on to 3D. So that goes hand in hand with trying to be more of a generalist and more of a Renaissance man of that industry.
Sure. So I want to get into in just a moment more of the educational side of things. But before we do that, doing what you do, at least once you're in like the more professional realm, how much are you interacting with say the director or the writer or the production designers before they get into actually creating the 3D models? Are you talking to them very much, or how much communication is there?
Ideally, there's a lot of communication because you have to understand the shape language that's established by the 2D concept artists if you're not one of them yourself. So there's a lot of talking going on between the art director, the concept designers themselves. So there's a lot of one-on-one, and there's a lot of meetings with a lot of people because you have to get that language down.
Yeah, you want to make sure everyone's on the same page, communicating, because basically you're taking someone's thought in their head, turning it into language, and hopefully everyone understands it.
Yeah, and it's got to make sense, and it's got to look like what they wanted it to look like.
Exactly. So tell us, how do we get there from here, and what are you studying right now that's preparing you to get to that place?
Well, right now I'm taking Maya classes so I can learn more of the program. I'm taking ZBrush. I'm taking pretty much anything to do with 3D. So Maya, ZBrush, 3D Code, a lot of Photoshop, a lot of stuff that's going to have to do with like texturing. But it's very important also to have traditional and like foundations backgrounds as well. So you need to take like basic drawing, you need to take life drawing, you need to understand shape and value and form and composition and all that stuff. That's equally important to get to where I'm trying to be as just the technical classes.
So what is sort of the top of your educational path before you move on to the professional side of things?
Portfolio building. It's key. You got to have a really strong portfolio. So it's all about, like I said, mileage. How much you're doing, how often you're doing it, and just keeping on going. Practice your craft.
Okay. I'm curious though. Like you sometimes you've got people like you that are doing 3D design, and then you have people that are going to more traditional art school and learning art history and art theory. How important is that in what you're doing?
It is extremely important. I mean, if you want to be on the creative side of it, it is one of the most important things, because if you don't understand the basics of design, you're not going to get very far. You're going to be one of those people that's requiring, I need someone else's drawing, I need someone else's design to go where I'm trying to go with it. You want to be able to make that stuff yourself and understand, why things are placed where they are, why the shape is where it is, the contrast and everything.
Sure. So I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball at you. Was there a moment in your education or just in learning the software or learning design rules, is there something that you learned that was like a aha moment where just like the switch was flipped and you said, you know what, this makes a lot more sense now, or this is a lot more fun than it used to be?
Less on the technical side, but more of when I first took my first life drawing class. Before you take a life drawing class, you hear about like drawing gestures and getting the form and the shape down before actually drawing what it is you're looking at. And to me, that was just a foreign concept. When you actually start doing it, you start understanding form, you start understanding motion, and it's about those building blocks and about the foundation. And that's kind of, it was definitely an aha moment for me.
Okay, cool. So Gen Y is obviously all about millennials, and that's sort of what we talk about on the show. Do you think millennials have a leg up when it comes to this sort of thing because we've sort of grown up around technology?
Definitely, I think so. It's an ever-growing field. It's something that it's going to continue to grow. So for sure.
Awesome. Well, that's very cool, and that's unfortunately all the time we have for you today. I'm Matt Mackey, and I want to give a big thanks to Mark Amorossi for being here on Gen Y. We'll see you next time.